Where I come from, when we greet one another, we say bonjour. So bonjour.
Bonjour.
Asanyenisque and Dejnakaz, Makwa Dodam, Batchawana Bay Dunjaba. My spirit name is Shooting Star Woman. I'm Bear Clan, and I originally come from Batchawana Bay, Ontario, which is on beautiful Lake Superior. And I'm very honored to be here to share some of the things that I've learned throughout my lifetime. When I was a little girl, we did a lot of things with the church up in Batchawana, and we went to a lot of those things that they did. They had bazaars and rummage sales, and they had services in the bush, and then they even had church services in the church. So we went to a lot of those potluck dinners, and I remember when I was 8 years old, I said to my mom, well, what did the Indian people used to do? Because I was sure that pre-contact, we didn't do that. But my mom didn't know, and it was because she went to residential school. So ever since I was 8 years old, I wanted to know about the teachings of my people. And so I have this saying that when you want something to happen, we put it out there. So I kept saying it over and over again. And so we have another saying that is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so I've been very fortunate to have many teachers appear in my life. And so I have been walking with my husband, Dan. We're going to be celebrating being married 44 years this summer on August 13th. And we both wanted to learn about the teachings of our ancestors. On our second date, we talked about that. And so we had put it out there, and elders came our way. You know, in Toronto at that time, when I was 15, we moved to Toronto permanently. And so that's where I met Dan, so I had to be there in Toronto, right? Anyway, there wasn't a lot of ceremonies going on because of the residential school, because of the reserve system, because our people were placed on reserves, and the Indian agent's job was to make sure that we stayed on that little piece of property and we didn't wear our regalia, and it was against the law for us to do ceremonies. So our elders would go back in the bush, you know, they'd walk an hour back into the bush about, you know, in the middle of the night when the Indian agent was sleeping, and they would have the ceremonies. They would do sweat lodges, they would do fasting ceremonies, they would do shaking tent ceremonies, they would do smudging ceremonies. They kept those ceremonies alive. And so when I was 17 in 1971, I was able to go out west to an ecumenical conference where elders from all over Canada and like Montana, North and South Dakota, the Indigenous elders came from all over, plus the non-native clergy of the world came. And my people brought out the hand drums and the medicines. They had sage, big bundles of sage wrapped in blankets. And they had sweetgrass, tobacco, and cedar, what we have on our table here. And they shared with the non-native clergy of the world that our way is as legitimate as their way. So from that time on, the ceremonies started coming forth. And so I was a part of that because I put it out there, you know, and the unseen world helped me. And so I eventually learned the songs. And to learn the songs, we went to ceremonies. And so we would be in the sweat lodge, and the song would get in my head, and I could pick it up while somebody else was singing it. But I had to keep going back over and over again so I could learn those songs, because when we started going to ceremonies, there was no little tape recorders or cell phones. We had to learn everything by heart. So we learned a lot of teachings from different nations. I am mostly Ojibway. I'm 5 parts Ojibway, 1 part Lakota, 1 part Mi'kmaq, 1 part French. And so we go to a lot of ceremonies to honor those nations. And my husband Dan is from the Iroquois Confederacy, and they have 6 different nations there, and he is Seneca. So we try to get to the 8 major ceremonies that they have. So we learned about the different ways of the different nations, and a lot of people don't realize that Dan and I have a mixed marriage. So we began to harmonize the traditions of our people together, and that's what we're sharing with you. So we want to sing an opening song, and this song is to honor the women. Before the non-native people came over here to this land that we call Turtle Island, our women had gender equity. I saw in my house that my mom was like the director. She would tell my father, my brothers and sisters what had to be done. this is how we're going to do it, and this is going to be your job, and everybody has to do it. And that was the way it was, you know, and that's how our house functioned. And it functioned well. And that was the traditional way for the women. So, but since the non-Native people came over here, they have taken the power away from the women. But now our women are getting that power back because we're learning our teachings and we're getting stronger. So this song is called the Anishinaabe Song. And it says in the Ojibway language, it says that the Anishinaabe woman teaches the children about culture and tradition, and she also teaches them about the ceremonies and how to take care of Mother Earth. And she teaches the language as well. So this is called the Anishinaabe Song. All right.
Oh, now it's Chimigwetchmelu.
Oh.
Yahweh, Chimigwetchmelu for that beautiful song.
Oh my God.
It was a good way to open up this this beautiful Wani Sleo. This day that we've been blessed with in a good way. We always like to begin our day with a purification smudge, which is the ceremony that we were doing when we purified the eagle staff, our flag. We purified our sacred items, this eagle wingtip, some of what Mary Lou has in front of her, that all had to be smudged. Our drums are very sacred, so our drums had to be purified. And so we always make sure that we take care of the little things before we do the big things, like the eagle staff. So we made sure that everything got purified in a good way. And that's the place from which we begin. Because it was taught to us that in our creation story, that everything is pure. Everything has purity. And we are related to everything because everything is alive. And we are related to everything in the natural world that's alive. Every single form of life. So, Asanyenis, Indigenous, Kildare-Dodam, Six Nations, Grand River, Dijaba. My spirit name is Asanyenis, which I introduced myself. I come from the Kildare clan. That's a sandpiper family member. So I come from this clan. That's the family I belong to. So a bird clan and a earth clan. Mary Lou comes from the bear clan. So the earth and the bird work very well together. So we have been in harmony for many, many years. In fact, some of the things that she was talking about, in a very unique way, I experienced something very similar in those same places. Like when you went to the ecumenical conference, that was held in a place called the Stony Reserve, just outside of Calgary, Alberta, in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. So she went and she experienced and she was awakened, her spirit was awakened at that place because of the ceremonies, because of the medicines, because of all the sacred items that she got to experience. And I happened to go there myself to the very same place, but I went there to attend and participate in a Sundance ceremony, my very first one. And that happened in 1977. And I went there with an elder by the name of Art Solomon from the Ojibway Nation. So I got to participate in this Sundance, and it was very hard. It was a very hard ceremony for me to participate in because I never done Sundance before. And to me, it was so hard. I really had to persevere. I really had to pray and ask the Creator for pity because I felt so weak. I just wasn't ready to do this ceremony. But I was encouraged by all the other people that were there dancing. All these at this particular ceremony, it was all men. So it was all men who were participating in this ceremony. And there was probably about 30 of us. And we all participated in an arbor. We had to build the arbor. And there, the land is like rock. So it's very hard to make a hole into areas around the rock because you had to find where the earth was, dig a hole, and then you place the poles. So we built the arbor, and it was just a hard event to create and get ready for. And then we went into our purification sweat lodge ceremonies to ask for permission to attend and to participate in this Sundance. So it was just a really hard event for me to participate in because I really didn't know that much about the ceremony. I didn't know how they did it. So I ended up dancing both in the day, during the day when the sun is out and the sun is up and our eldest brother is traveling across the sky. I had to dance all day long with the drummers that drummed us into dancing. So I had to dance every time the drummer started drumming. I'd have to get up and start dancing and praying. And then at nighttime, I thought I'd get some sleep, and I realized I didn't have a night dancer. You need a night dancer, someone that you pay or you give them something as a gift, so that they will dance for you through the night for the 4 nights. So for 4 nights, I had to dance those 4 nights. So not only did I dance those 4 nights, but I danced all the 4 days. I was the only person who did it, but I was the only person who did not know and made that mistake of not getting a night dancer. So I danced both morning and I danced at night. So I finished, I completed, and the one thing that I was praying for was I was praying for Mary Lou. I was praying for our family, our son, and I was praying for our daughters. And so I was just so focused, and that's what kept me going. That's what kept my spirit alive. And so I'll never forget that. And it happened on the Stony Reserve where Mary Lou had gotten her initiation and got her first awakening to happen and become activated to start to learn about the traditional Indigenous way. And so these life ways, we began the journey. We began the journey together, and we've been on the journey, we call it the Red Road. We've been on the Red Road ever since. So that began in the mid-70s or mid-80s, but we really got serious when the 90s came. 1990 happened, and that was a big life-changing event. For me, it was very life-changing because I stopped drinking, I stopped alcohol, I stopped recreational drugs, and I made a commitment that I would start to live my life the way the Creator wanted me to live. And that was to take care of my family, that was to take care of myself better than I had been. So I did that. And so ever since then, since 1990, I have been on this journey with Mary Lou, and we have been on the ride of our life. We made sure that we had our seatbelts on, because this journey has just been so ever-changing. It has been so exciting. It has had so many ups and downs that we've experienced, but it has all been good because we have learned from it all. Everything has taught us to be the people that we are today. And so we live here in this special place called Batchawana. It's we are right next to the forks of the Thames River, but that's the name that John Graves Simcoe gave it when he arrived here in 1793. But we had always called it Batchawana. And Batchawana means horn, or it can mean antler. So we called it the Horn River. And it also became known as the Antler River because it looks like antlers at the forks if you look at it from above. I don't know how they knew that, but and there were even, when John Graves Simcoe arrived, we understand that the trees had actual carvings into the tree of men wearing these headgear, much like the Haudenosaunee Gistoa, or the Ogima headdress that they wear, and it had antlers on it, coming out both sides, 2 antlers on both sides. And we believed that that was because these men had been blessed, that they knew how to see with a sixth sense like a deer. The deer can see with this sixth sense. With those antlers, it can see around it, 360 degrees. It has vision. And so when we installed men to be our what we call our, how do we say, you say Ogima? That's how you say
Ayabe.
It? Yeah, or Ayabe.
Which means head of the herd.
Head of the herd, yeah. Head of the herd. I like that one. But Ogima is definitely one. We have a term that we call
The Loyani?
Loyani. Mary Lou is my memory. She always reminds me of the terms.
I've had a 50-year crash course on Iroquoism.
Yeah. So that's what we call our chiefs. And the Loyani are considered sacred leaders, and they work with the clan mothers, head of the clans, and these women picked them because those grandmothers watched those young men grow from being young boys to being middle-aged, being youth, being into adulthood, how they treated women, how they treated the elders, how they treated nature, how they treated the ceremonies, and they learned from all of that. And so they found that these men would be good candidates to be leaders of our clan. So my grandmother, she was a clan mother. And she was head of the Seneca Kildare clan. So in the Onondaga Longhouse on the Six Nations Reserve. So she had a very important responsibility and role as a clan mother. She got to pick the chief for our clan, for our family, and for our nation. So she had a very important responsibility. And that's when, like Mary Lou says, the gender equity, women selected the chiefs. So when the Europeans arrived here, well, that was totally something that was just, they couldn't believe it.
It's outrageous.
Yeah, it was pretty, yeah, you could say that, you know, because over back in Europe, women were considered chattel. Chattel is a Greek term, and it translates, it means property. Women were considered property of the men. There's a term, or a phrase, it's called the rule of thumb. Okay, the rule of thumb, you've probably heard of it. The rule of thumb, basically the origin of that phrase is, it's a reference to how men could discipline their wives with a switch, with a stick, as long as the diameter of the stick was not larger than his thumb. If it was larger than his thumb, then he could be criminalized. He could be brought up on charges of abuse. But if it was less than his thumb, then it was okay. It was okay to discipline his wife in public. You know, it happened all the time. And, you know, that to us, that was unheard of. That was just totally, that went totally against our way of life. And so the first thing that the Europeans set out to do was to silence the women, because women had the responsibility of the family, of the home, our homes, of our land, and all the yield that came from the land. And I'm talking about the harvest, and I'm talking about the hunt. Women had that responsibility. That was their responsibility, to make sure that no one went hungry or that no one was homeless. If they belonged to our clan, then our clan mother would make sure that he was put into a home where he had a roof over his head and a bed for him to sleep in. So that was the women's responsibility. Men's responsibility were to be the providers, they were to be the protectors, and they were also to be the teachers who taught and spoke in the ceremonies, in the ceremonial observances that we had. So men had that role, responsibility, women had their role and responsibility, and it seemed to work, and it worked because it came from the great law of peace, Constitution, which this tree is a symbol of. This tree represents the great law, okay? It's a white pine, and the uniqueness of a white pine is if you look at these little cones, these little leaves of the tree. There's 5 different projectiles or points that come out of each leaf, and those 5 projectiles represent, at that time, we only had 5 nations when the peacemaker came and brought the great law of peace to us, because prior to that, we were fighting each other, we were killing each other, we were living in a bad way. And so we were self-destructing. So the peacemaker was sent to us. He came from a place called, we call it today, it would be the Tyandanaga Reserve on the other side of the Lake Ontario. At that time, Lake Ontario, we called it a different name. One of the names that we called the Great Lakes was Ohio. Ohio means great water, the great water. So the peacemaker came across the great water, arrived in a place called Oswego, New York State, and he came and he started to preach and teach us about living in peace amongst all people, living in unity, so that we had power in unity, and we lived in righteousness, taking care of each other. The welfare of the people was utmost, was supreme. So that was the way that we lived, with peace, power, and righteousness. So this tree of peace was the symbol. We planted this tree of peace in 1991 on July 11th. And on July 11th, 1990, that was when the Sûreté du Québec, or the Provincial Police of Quebec, began firing live ammunition at Mohawk women and children. And so when they started doing that, that was an outright declaration of I guess you could say, insubordination, but to us it was like war. And so the Mohawk people put out a call for unity, and people came. People came to stand in solidarity with them. And so for a number of, I think it was, what was it, 68 days? 68 days that standoff lasted. And then they, as a result, the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples happened, and that was unveiled in 1997, I think, in Montreal. And so our history has a long-standing, prior to Western civilization, a responsibility of songs, dances, of ceremony, of giving acknowledgement to this natural world. Everything in the natural world is sacred, and we treat everything in the natural world because they are alive and we are related to all of it. So I just wanted to open up with those words, Mary Lou, of a little bit of our history and how we still observe that here in Bay. In fact, we still observe those old treaties. One of the oldest treaties around here is the dish with one spoon treaty. And the dish with one spoon basically says that we will all eat from this Great Lakes watershed together. And the Indigenous people at that time made a treaty. And that treaty was made in 1701. In 1701. So just wanted to acknowledge that we are still honoring that treaty. We still take care of each other. We still, at public demonstrations, public rallies, public events, we are making sure that we feed the people that come. So we always have food for people so that no one goes hungry. We always make sure that there's no people that are left homeless. Any homeless people that come to our gatherings, we will make sure that they have a place to sleep in that night. So we are still honoring the dish with one spoon treaty. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. But it all began when John Graves Simcoe arrived here in 1793. He arrived here, and he was brought here by people like Joseph Brant and some other scouts. And they arrived here because they knew that the Attawandaron people lived here, and they lived here in balance, and they existed, and they took care of this place, this sacred strategic site known as Bay. And so John Graves Simcoe was coming from Fort Detroit, and he was on his way to Fort York. And so he arrived here in 1793, and he wanted to declare London as the capital of Upper Canada. But that all changed because Toronto was recognized he wanted to be as the capital, and we now know that today that Toronto is the capital of Ontario, the province, which I think formed from Upper Canada. So I think we're having some sounds that are taking away from our presentation here. Yeah, a little bit of competition, yeah. Mary Lou used to always say that about the planes that used to fly overhead as we were doing some on-camera work. But so I guess we would like to share a little bit more about this Wanis Leo, this day that we are celebrating. This Wanis Leo is a good day. We always try to do it around this time because the sun is at its peak. And when the sun is at its peak, we don't cast a shadow. But right now, because we're a little bit north of the east, because the sun is traveling from east to west, from the eastern door to the western door. So we do cast a little bit of a shadow. But if everything was right, we would be doing our ceremonies right when the sun is above us. And we tried to do that today here at the Tree of Peace with the sun being right above us. But it's actually a little bit a little bit south of us. So we do cast a little bit of a shadow. But the idea is that everything that we are doing so that the Creator witnesses it. And we want the Creator to witness what we are doing. So what we are doing here on this on-camera presentation is sharing a little bit about our history. And we are having to overcome some of the surrounding sounds of this tractor that's at work. We have to deal with trains, we have to deal with planes. And so this is some of the noise that we have to deal with sometimes. So we are just grateful for this time that we get to spend with you to share a little bit about our way of life, to share a little bit about the Tree of Peace on July 11th coming up. That will be the 30-year anniversary of this tree that it's been living here. It started off as a little tree. It started off as a little tree that was about this big. It was donated to us by the Public Utilities of London. And the tree, we thought it was going to die because it was all crooked. And I remember one of our elders, Bruce Elijah, saying, you know, you never know. That tree just might grow good roots and it may grow and live forever. So this is 30 years later, and Mayor Lou wanted to mention the flags. The flags are how we dress the tree. Every July 11th, we do a prayer circle right here around the tree. We have people that go around the circle, and we do a prayer circle. And we usually bring in someone who was at Kanesatake on July 11th or after the ensuing days, the 68 days after, and that they were living inside where the army had encircled the treatment center, where they were kind of held captive for those 68 days. So this tree is representative of that time. It's dressed with the 7 flags. The colors are red, white, yellow, black, blue, green, and purple. So the red, white, yellow, black represent the 4 cardinal colors of man. We have 4 different colors of man. Indigenous people are the red. So red, white, black, and blue. So those 4 colors, and each one of them represents a particular part of our relationship with Mother Earth, with Earth and the natural world. So each one of us has a responsibility to take care of. Mind you, those responsibilities are not being taken care of by the other colors, so we have a responsibility where we try to do our best to take care of those responsibilities. So, and the yellows are, the green stands for Mother Earth, represents Mother Earth. The blue represents Father Sky, and the purple represents the Creator who's inside of all of us, inside of every form of life. So we always try to recognize the Creator in all of our ceremonies, because that's why we were given life. And we respect life so much that we always try to walk in a good way and be cognizant of everything that's happening around us in a good way. See, now all the sounds have kind of calmed down, so we can, so did you want to sing another song, Mary Lou?
Yes. Part of our ceremonies are that we honor everything. We have songs for everything. We have ceremonies for everything. Our whole day is basically a ceremony. So we always honor the water. So I have my little copper cup here, and this contains water. I would love to tell you that it contained water from Lake Superior, because that's where I grew up and I drank that water. But this is London water. But water is the lifeblood of our Mother, the Earth. From the time that we're conceived, we are in water, and that water protects us as we grow and develop. So when it's time for us, when we come out into the world, the water breaks and out we come, and from that time on we need pure, clean water to survive. We women are in harmony with the water, and we women are also in harmony with the moon. The moon shows her face every 28 days, and a woman has a purification cycle every 28 days. So we have that harmony. So the women, as our roles and traditions, the women speak for the water, and the men take care of the fire. So Dan and I have been having moon ceremonies in the city of London for quite a few years, and even with Zoom happening because of COVID, we've been doing moon ceremonies at our house. So we always honor the moon, and we honor the ceremonies, and we honor the songs, because even though people were locked up for like a good year, those prayers had to be said and those ceremonies have to be done. So we want to teach you this song called the Water Song. It is a song that is very simple to learn. I learned it, I just heard it once and I got it in my head, and then I just had to learn that song. So I know sometimes it's hard to learn songs because some people just don't have the knack for it. Sometimes you need to hear it a couple more times. So if you go on YouTube and key in my name, Mary Lou Smoke, I'm singing the Water Song there at Harborfront. So we want you to take the song and teach it to somebody who's younger than you and teach them about the importance of our water. We need to have water for the next 7 generations. You know, this is our planet that the Creator gave to us to survive on. We can't go anyplace else. There's no water on other planets out there, you know, so we have to take care of this one. So Dan and I are always around London someplace, so we're going to run into you and we want to hear you sing a verse of the song, okay? There's people in London who know this song already, so you can get help.
And what about
another
YouTube,
way.
Mary Lou?
Huh?
What about YouTube?
Yeah, I did. I said
okay.
that, yeah.
Okay, Mary Lou.
Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Chinaya. That's pretty simple, right? Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey. Oh, Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey. Now we're gonna sing this last verse like our life depends upon water. Oh, Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Wichita, do ya, do ya, do ya. Wichita, do ya, do ya, hey. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey ya. Hey ya, Chinaya, hey ya, hey. Oh, Matakiwasan. So I just said Matakiwasan, which means in the Lakota language, all my relations. I said earlier at the beginning that I'm part Lakota, I'm part Mi'kmaq, I'm part French, and mostly Ojibway. So we always honor my different nations, and because we love to go to ceremonies, and I love to sing. So since I discovered that I could sing those other nation songs because I'm a part of those nations, you know, it's expanded my repertoire. So I really love to share those songs. And we always, I always like to honor my French side. And so sometimes when we're on the train, if we're sitting in business class, I'll order a baguette and I use my accent and the waiter is impressed. So, you know, I tried singing Alouette one day at a gathering, but people weren't too impressed. So I have to think of other ways to honor my French side.
Oh, Mary-Lou.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd just like to say in closing, Nyawe sagwan dizon, senion, esquatahas, git kondanwa, kohase, jawi se dodaqua, oskada nagohas, oida anahas. Grandfather, grandmother, hear our sacred thoughts, hear our sacred prayers. As we bring our good minds into the circle here today, our good intentions. We want to acknowledge the water, as Mary-Lou sang that song, that beautiful song. The water is the lifeblood of Mother Earth. All the life that lives in Mother Earth, all the life that lives on Mother Earth, all the life that lives in the water, all the life that lives on the water. They are part of a life support system that continues to take care of the water and continues to take care of Mother Earth. So we want to acknowledge that our Father Sky, who continues to breathe that life into all creation. Our Father Sky represents the air. We want to acknowledge our eldest brother, the sun, who I said is on his journey from the eastern door to the western door. He shows his face, and when he does, he provides us with heat and he provides us with light each day. And he does that, and we acknowledge that that is a life, nothing would survive without the heat and the light from our Father Sky. Nothing. He represents fire. Fire. So we want to acknowledge that he's still following his sacred instructions. We also want to acknowledge our grandmother Moon. Mary-Lou just spoke for our grandmother Moon. Nothing would survive without our grandmother Moon. As Mary-Lou said, she's in sync with the water. She's in sync with showing her face every 28 days. We will acknowledge the stars. The stars remind us when it's time for us to conduct our ceremonies of Thanksgiving. We acknowledge the thunders. The thunder bring the purifying rains that cleanse and water and gives our Mother Earth a drink, still following their sacred instructions. We acknowledge the four protectors. They are the celestial beings that look after all spiritual matters. We all have spirit helpers, and those spirit helpers guide us in a good way. They help us with our belief system, with our faith, and we acknowledge that they're still following their sacred instructions. Grandfather, grandmother, so be it in our minds. And lastly, we acknowledge the Creator, Sagwan Dizo, Hijaminado, the maker of our bodies. The Creator has put everything here for us that we need to survive. We don't have to go anywhere else because everything is right here. And all we have to do is take care of it. And all we have to do is, if we want it to come back, then all we have to do is give thanks. And these ceremonies are our way of giving thanks. So we want to acknowledge Grandfather, Grandmother, that it's been a blessing. It's been a good time to spend in the circle with all of you out there watching us and I especially enjoy doing this with my partner. Mary-Lou is my teacher, and she always shows me in a good way how to be humble. Humility is my greatest teacher, because I do have a character defect sometimes of ego. And ego is also known as easing God out. So I don't want to do that. I want the Creator always to be guiding me, always to be showing me the good way. And he never gives me a bad direction or a bad steer. Always steers me in the proper way. So in the spirit of our ancestors, all my relations, Daneto, Hai Hai. Mary-Lou? Do you have any closing words, Mary-Lou? I think we've pretty much covered most of everything we wanted to say. You know, right here at the Tree of Peace. We hope people come on July 11th. Anything you'd like to say, Mary-Lou? July 11th, you'll be singing?
Yes, I'll be singing, and I'll have all our medicines here, and if people come down, we'll be taking the smudge around not me, but somebody who
Yeah.
has good knees will take the smudge around, and we'll have a ceremony to honor and remember and never let this kind of thing happen again.
Yeah, yeah. We came here one year, and someone had taken the plaque. It was brass. So they took it off because they can cash in the brass for whatever they call that, recycled metals.
Just to make some money.
Yeah. So now we got one that's here, permanent, here to stay. And I can see the wind is starting to blow the eagle staff of our flag a little bit. I don't want it to fall, especially on camera. So I guess that's our closing. In the spirit of our ancestors, all my relations, Daneto, hi hi.
Hi.